The Marilyn Monroe mystery finally solved, and it's not good. Marilyn Monroe, born Norma Jean Mortensen on June 1st, 1926, in Los Angeles, rose from a troubled childhood to become one of the most iconic figures in Hollywood history. Orphaned and raised in foster homes, she discovered early on the power of reinvention with her platinum blonde hair, sultry voice, and dazzling screen presence. She captivated audiences in films like Some Like It Hot, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and The 7-Year Itch. But behind the glamorous image was a woman seeking love, acceptance, and respect in an industry that often reduced her to a stereotype. Her marriages to baseball legend Joe DiMaggio and playwright Arthur Miller only added to her mystique. Monroe's tragic death in 1962 at the age of 36 shocked the world and fueled endless speculation. Yet even decades later, she remains a symbol of beauty, vulnerability, and the cost of fame. From factory girl to silver screen, Marilyn's unlikely beginning. Marilyn Monroe's career began not under the spotlight, but in a munitions factory during World War II. While working at Radioplane Company in 1944, a photographer from the U.S. Army was sent to take morale-boosting pictures of female workers. That photographer captured a young Norma Jean, whose natural charm and photogenic look sparked interest. Soon, she began modeling and signed with the Blue Book Model Agency, dyeing her hair blonde and adopting the name Marilyn Monroe, a blend of screen glamour and her mother's maiden name. Her modeling success led to small film roles, and by the late 1940s, she secured a contract with 20th Century Fox. Though her early parts were minor, her charisma was undeniable. Audiences noticed, and Hollywood started paying attention. Marilyn's climb from obscurity to rising star was swift, but it was just the beginning of a complex journey that would make her a cultural icon. The role that defined an icon, Marilyn in Some Like It Hot. If there was one role that immortalized Marilyn Monroe, it was her unforgettable performance as Sugar Cane in the 1959 comedy Some Like It Hot, directed by Billy Wilder. The film paired Monroe with Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon in a story that blended cross-dressing hijinks, gangster chaos, and heartfelt charm. Marilyn's portrayal of Sugar, a vulnerable, saxophone-playing singer looking for love, was both comedic and deeply human. More than just a bombshell, Marilyn brought complexity to the character. Behind Sugar's flirtatious smile was a woman shaped by disappointment, longing for something real. Monroe's timing was impeccable, her physical comedy was graceful, and her vulnerability resonated with audiences around the world. The film was a huge success and remains one of the greatest comedies ever made. Her line, "I'm not very bright, I guess," delivered with soft resignation, captured the heartbreak behind the beauty. It wasn't just acting, it was Marilyn channeling a part of herself. Some Like It Hot earned her a Golden Globe and cemented her status not only as a sex symbol, but as a truly gifted actress. More than a blonde bombshell, Marilyn Monroe's lasting achievements. Marilyn Monroe's career is filled with remarkable achievements that transcended her initial image as a blonde bombshell. She was an actress, singer, and model, but it was her ability to transform herself that made her a true icon in Hollywood. Over the years, Monroe earned critical acclaim for her performances, breaking free from the dumb blonde stereotype that Hollywood had typecast her in. Her most significant achievement came with her role in Some Like It Hot, 1959, which not only solidified her status as a major Hollywood star, but also earned her a Golden Globe Award. She also received a nomination for Best Actress for Bus Stop, 1956, proving her acting range and versatility. Monroe became known for her comedic timing, emotional depth, and strong screen presence, earning the respect of both critics and peers. Beyond acting, Marilyn's influence extended to fashion and culture. She became an enduring symbol of beauty and glamour, and her iconic looks continue to inspire generations. She also founded her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, seeking creative control over her projects, an early and significant step for a woman in Hollywood at the time. Marilyn Monroe's private life, behind the dazzling lights of Hollywood. Marilyn Monroe's personal life was often a contrast to her glamorous public image. Her childhood was marked by instability, as she never knew her father and her mother struggled with mental illness. Marilyn spent much of her early life in foster homes and orphanages, a past that left deep emotional scars and a lifelong search for belonging. Marilyn married 3 times, but each marriage brought its own share of heartbreak. Her first marriage was at age 16 to James Dougherty, a factory worker, which ended when she pursued modeling and acting. Her second marriage, to baseball legend Joe DiMaggio in 1954, captured the nation's attention. Though their love was passionate, it was also turbulent. DiMaggio struggled with Marilyn's fame and independence, and the marriage lasted only 9 months. Despite their divorce, DiMaggio remained deeply devoted to her and even arranged for fresh roses to be placed on her grave for decades after her death. Her third marriage to playwright Arthur Miller was seen as a union of beauty and intellect. They married in 1956, but the relationship was strained by Monroe's insecurities and Miller's emotional distance. The couple divorced in 1961. Despite her fame, Marilyn longed for stability and unconditional love, something she rarely found in her personal life. Unveiling the truth, the final mystery of Marilyn Monroe solved. For over 6 decades, the death of Marilyn Monroe has remained one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. Officially, her passing on August 5, 1962, was labeled a probable suicide due to a lethal overdose of barbiturates. Yet, that explanation never sat well with the public or with those closest to her. Instead of closure, her death sparked decades of speculation, spawning theories involving the CIA, the Mafia, and the Kennedy family. The allure of Marilyn Monroe was not just in her beauty and charm, but also in the contradictions she embodied: the glowing starlet who suffered silently, the sex symbol with a razor-sharp intellect, and the public icon whose private life was plagued with instability. These contradictions made the mystery of her death all the more compelling. How could someone who was, by all accounts, planning new film projects, pursuing therapy, and attempting to reclaim her life suddenly die alone, in her home, under such suspicious circumstances? Recently unearthed evidence, declassified government documents, and new interviews from individuals close to the original investigation has started to piece together a more nuanced truth. A former assistant to the Los Angeles County coroner claimed in a recorded interview that political figures pressured officials to avoid implicating high-profile individuals in Monroe's case. It was long rumored that Monroe had kept a secret diary that included sensitive notes about her alleged relationships with both President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Attorney General Robert F. Chuck Kennedy. That diary, if it existed, was never recovered and is believed to have vanished in the hours following her death. These revelations don't confirm a conspiracy, but they paint a picture of a woman trapped in a world where secrets were currency and trust was scarce. Marilyn was reportedly feeling used and discarded by those she thought cared for her. While many wanted to believe in a tidy answer, a tragic overdose, new insights suggest it was far more complicated. Monroe's death likely stemmed from emotional exhaustion, the effects of long-term addiction, and a pervasive sense of isolation magnified by fame. What emerges from this modern reevaluation is a clearer image of Marilyn Monroe, not as a tragic femme fatale or a political liability, but as a human being failed by the systems that once celebrated her. Her legacy remains brilliant and tragic, a cautionary tale of stardom's price and society's obsession with beauty and fame. Perhaps the final mystery of Marilyn Monroe isn't who or what killed her, but how we, as a culture, let her down. What really drove Marilyn Monroe to her breaking point? Marilyn Monroe's life was a shimmering fantasy from the outside, but behind the red carpets and radiant smiles was a slow, heartbreaking descent. Her final years were marked by loneliness, betrayal, addiction, and a growing sense that she was being controlled by forces far more powerful than herself. The tragedy of Marilyn Monroe didn't unfold in a single moment. It built slowly, layer by layer, until she could no longer bear the weight. One major factor contributing to her breakdown was her constant objectification. Hollywood adored Marilyn's curves and breathy voice, but rarely appreciated her intelligence or desire to be taken seriously as an actress. Studios saw her as a product, something to sell, package, and discard once she lost her shine, even when she tried to break free and start her own production company. She faced resistance from an industry that didn't want its most iconic sex symbol to grow up or think for herself. Her romantic life was another source of pain. Though she married 3 times, most famously to baseball legend Joe DiMaggio and playwright Arthur Miller, none of these unions gave her the emotional security she craved. She often fell in love with men who adored the image of Marilyn Monroe, but struggled to connect with Norma Jean, the vulnerable woman behind the persona. Each failed relationship deepened her sense of abandonment. Then came the reported affairs with powerful men, especially the Kennedys. While much of it remains speculation, many believe that Marilyn became entangled in political games beyond her understanding. She was allegedly promised love and protection, but when things grew too complicated or risky, she was cast aside. Some accounts suggest that in her final days, she felt threatened, watched, and silenced. The mounting pressure triggered severe anxiety and insomnia. She turned increasingly to barbiturates and sleeping pills to escape the mental turmoil, leading to a vicious cycle of dependence. Despite undergoing therapy and seeking help, the tools available at the time were far too limited to address the complex emotional trauma she carried from childhood to stardom. Even those who cared for her, friends, agents, doctors, often enabled her self-destruction. Prescriptions were handed out freely, and her pleas for help were often brushed off as Marilyn being dramatic. But behind the scenes, she was falling apart. In the end, the root of Monroe's tragic end wasn't just pills or politics. It was the crushing weight of unmet emotional needs, years of exploitation, and a world that loved her image more than her soul. Marilyn Monroe's mysterious farewell. On August 5, 1962, the world awoke to devastating news. Marilyn Monroe was dead, at just 36 years old. The blonde bombshell, whose name had become synonymous with Hollywood glamour, was found lifeless in her Los Angeles home. The official cause, an overdose of barbiturates, ruled a probable suicide, but for many, that explanation felt incomplete, even suspicious. Marilyn was discovered naked, face down on her bed, clutching a telephone receiver. The room was eerily neat, with empty pill bottles nearby. It was her housekeeper who first noticed something was wrong. A call was made. Then silence turned to panic. And soon, the world's media descended. The image of the radiant star, silenced so tragically, shocked millions. She had been adored across the globe, but in her final moments, she was entirely alone. Questions quickly surfaced. Why were there inconsistencies in the timeline of events? Why did it take so long for authorities to be called? Was she really suicidal or silenced because she knew too much? Rumors of affairs with President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert only deepened the mystery. Some even speculated government involvement or foul play. To this day, the circumstances of her death remain one of the most debated in celebrity history. But beyond the mystery was a deep sorrow. Marilyn had long battled feelings of abandonment, inadequacy, and a yearning to be seen beyond her image. Her death wasn't just the end of a life. It was the collapse of a fragile soul who bore too much, too brightly, for too long. The funeral was a quiet affair, orchestrated by her ex-husband Joe DiMaggio. He barred Hollywood elites, convinced they had used and discarded her. For 20 years after her death, he sent roses to her grave 3 times a week, a silent tribute to a woman he never stopped loving. Marilyn Monroe's passing wasn't just the loss of a screen siren. It was a moment when the world was forced to confront the cost of fame, the cruelty of exploitation, and the tragic fate of a woman who only wanted to be loved for who she truly was. A legacy written in stardust. More than 6 decades after her death, Marilyn Monroe remains an icon, timeless, radiant, and endlessly fascinating. Her image still graces magazine covers, fashion lines, perfume ads, and pop art pieces. She's not just remembered, she's immortalized. Monroe's legacy isn't merely her beauty or tragic end, it's the cultural revolution she sparked and the emotional resonance she left behind. Marilyn broke barriers in a time when women in Hollywood were expected to stay silent and obedient. Beneath her breathy voice and seductive smile was a fiercely ambitious woman who fought for better roles, equal pay, and creative control. She challenged a male-dominated system and paved the way for future generations of women in film. Her vulnerability became her power. Marilyn gave a voice to fragility, to loneliness, and to longing. That raw humanity is what still connects her to millions today. From the silver screen to social media, she has transcended the decades as both a cautionary tale and a beacon of light. More than just a starlet, she became a symbol of beauty, tragedy, resilience, and depth. Her story continues to inspire films, books, academic studies, and art, even in death. Marilyn lives, not as a victim, but as a woman who defied the odds and became eternal. Lessons in light and shadow. What Marilyn Monroe taught us all. Marilyn Monroe's life, though marked by fame and admiration, stands as one of the most profound cautionary tales in American culture. Beyond the glamour, the red lipstick, and the wind-blown white dress, Marilyn's story reminds us that fame is a double-edged sword. It can lift you high, but it can also isolate you in ways the world doesn't see. Perhaps the most important lesson Marilyn left behind is that beauty and success are not synonymous with happiness. She was adored by millions, yet often described herself as lonely, misunderstood, and insecure. Despite being the fantasy of an entire generation, she struggled deeply with self-worth. Her vulnerability made her relatable, even as the world tried to mold her into an unreachable ideal. Marilyn also serves as a reminder of the critical importance of mental health. At a time when emotional well-being was rarely discussed, she suffered in silence, battling anxiety, insomnia, and the side effects of overmedication. Her story teaches us that behind the strongest personas can lie fragile hearts, and that seeking help is not a weakness, but an act of courage. Another vital takeaway from Marilyn's life is the danger of idolization. The world loved the image of Marilyn Monroe, but often ignored Norma Jean, the sensitive, artistic woman beneath the surface. We are reminded that celebrities are human beings, not invincible icons. To truly honor someone is to see them wholly, not just their highlight reels. In her vulnerability, Marilyn created a legacy that transcends cinema. She connected with millions not because she was perfect, but because she wasn't. She showed us that pain could exist behind the spotlight and that imperfection is deeply human and even beautiful. Her tragic end continues to haunt, but her journey offers hope that even the most broken can shine the brightest.